Are we?
Are we?
Wait, are we actually rolling? I didn't know that.
Gotcha. All right, guys, welcome to this episode of the Expert Nerd Podcast. I am Avery.
And I'm Matt.
And today we are going to be talking about the most ambitious DC crossover event in television history, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Part 1 through 5, that just ended a couple days ago.
Honestly, it's amazing how much they pulled off with this.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot I didn't think was going to happen. There was a lot that happened I just was shocked at.
I wasn't expecting some of it.
But we'll get into that later.
And yes, to be fair, it should be implied, spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
Major spoilers.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it, don't listen past here until you have watched it. But if you really don't care and you just want to hear the luscious sounds of our voice,
This
go
is
ahead
the
and feel
episode for
free.
you. So we are not going to break it down episode by episode because, quite frankly, I don't remember it episode by episode because there was a large break in the middle.
And we remember more events than, like, coming in on Central City, zooming in on the Flash, running through the city.
Pan out, pan wide.
Pam Beasley.
Pan.
Pam. I think I'm gonna help you with this Pam situation.
So starting off, let's just do overall impression. If you had to give this a rating, not in comparison to any other like Flash or Arrowverse event, just as its own a standalone crossover, what do you give it?
It's in the 8s. I would say like somewhere between 8 and 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and we'll talk about that more. But there's one continuous major problem I have with this crossover, which has been a problem with my crossovers since the crossovers started.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. Usually I kind of roll my eyes at some of the crossovers because they're a little campy, which is good, but you kind of know what's going to happen. This is the first one where I really felt like there were consequences, and there were. And they didn't do anything that kind of, sometimes they'll have a thing where, and not necessarily in an Arrowverse crossover or anything like that, but in things, something bad could happen, and then at some point in the show, they're just like, yeah, we reversed that, so it didn't happen. And
in a way that kind of
they
happens.
kind of do it, but the main consequence that and here's where we're just gonna start spoiling stuff. The main consequence I'm talking about is Oliver dying and
Twice.
staying dead.
Yes. Now, I do want to get into, and this I do remember was specifically from the first episode. The fact that Oliver technically died in the first episode of a 5-part crossover shocked me.
I was really wondering how they were going to pull it off.
He is the heart of the Arrowverse, given that he is the Green Arrow. He's the one that started it all. And just starting off with the stakes so high that immediately in the first episode, he dies. I had no clue where to go from there.
I was upset, and I remember telling you about this when we started it and when it finally ended, that I was really unsatisfied with the way he died in the very beginning.
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of silly.
I thought it was a good way to show, the stakes are high. Like, obviously, your biggest hero, the one that started it all, is dead. So, obviously, this is a big thing that's happening, a big crisis. Mm-hmm. But, no, I felt the same way in the fact that I was like, really? That's it?
That's it?
And it wasn't. But
we went almost a decade of...
yeah.
And this is how it ends. Yeah, so what we're talking about is Oliver getting murdered by the time ghosts. No, they're not time ghosts. They're just ghosts.
They're like space antimatter ghosts. Plot.
Space ghosts.
Anyway.
So he just gets beaten up by a bunch of them and dies. And in the very beginning. And I was like, well, there's one of two ways that this is going to go. It's either going to be we wanted to just get that over with now to where it kind of sets a very serious, very somber tone for the rest of the
melancholy,
all of the adjectives.
I have a thesaurus in my hands, guys. Sorry.
To where it sets the mood like that for the entire thing, and then to show that it is serious, or what it ended up being, that he kind of comes back somehow.
Yeah, there's more to the story.
That's not the end for Oliver Queen.
Even though they don't fully explain it. So, like, if you know the comics, you understand it. But if you don't know the comics, they kind of explain it, but not to where you're, like, completely understanding. You're just like, okay, well, I guess this is a thing that's happening.
And pretend I don't know and that we don't know what the comics are. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so the way Oliver eventually comes back is he's technically dead, but he's, in a way, DC's version of something that's similar to the Grim Reaper. Not like an evil, like he's not death or anything like that, but he becomes the Spectre. And the Spectre in the comics is essentially like this supernatural being who tries to make sure everyone that dies, like, essentially stays dead. He tries to keep the balance between life and death. He's the one that he's like the ferryman that makes them go to heaven or hell or purgatory or whatever the equivalent of that in DC is. And that's what Oliver becomes, which is cool because in the comics at one point, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, actually becomes the Spectre. And, like, Oliver Queen talks to him as the Spectre, and they're still friends and some stuff like that. So in a way, I hope Oliver, yes, while he is dead twice, first as Oliver Queen, and second probably as the Spectre. I do hope that at least leaves it open for, like, maybe him to come back when Barry needs some sage advice or something.
Yeah.
And he comes back as the Spectre in a more spectre-y form instead of just a Oliver Queen wearing a big green hood and cape.
Yeah. Almost like he is... Almost like there's a possibility of him coming back like a Force ghost.
Right, and
Obi-Wan,
not in like a
Yoda
permanent
style
thing, but the same way that like Obi-Wan comes back and is like, you can do it, Luke.
Yeah.
That was a terrible Obi-Wan, sorry.
So yeah, the second ending of Oliver Queen I was a lot more satisfied with. It felt like a good send-off.
I'll say it, I cried.
Matt saw it twice.
And cried both times.
I did not cry either time.
He's not. It's fine.
I'm not human. Let's do this now. You warned me about it a little bit, and I ended up having the same exact thought of toward the end, actually throughout the entire event, the 5-part event, where is everybody?
Yes. Okay. So I said this at the beginning of the podcast. My one biggest problem with this crossover is the same problem I've had with every crossover. It's the fact that they have this huge cast of characters and they're just not there.
When it doesn't even make sense for them to not be there.
It doesn't explain that why they're not there. So, okay, here's an example. For the first 3 parts, Oliver's daughter, Mia, is super integral to the plot. She's super, like, my dad's dead. I want to get him back every way I can.
Mm-hmm.
But in the second part, when they, like, fix the end of the multiverse, essentially, she's just not there. She never shows up. They don't mention her. They don't do anything. She's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, at the beginning, Ralph's there, Cisco's there, all of that. They don't show up in the second half of the crossover either. Iris doesn't show up. So in the whole part, specifically, when they make this new Earth and they reset the multiverse, like, one of my biggest problems was everyone goes to the people they love and they're like, oh my gosh, you're still alive. I'm so happy.
Oh, I have 2 kids now.
Yeah, like that's awesome. It is. But who's the first person Barry Allen should go to?
Obviously, it's Sarah Lance.
Oh my gosh. No kidding.
I looked all over the city for you.
Yeah, like, it didn't show Iris. It didn't show his best friend, Cisco, or his wife, the love of his life.
Snow is the
Iris.
only other.
Wells.
Wells was there, but Snow was the only. Caitlin Snow was the only other Flash character in the second half of the.
And like Barry, like easily would have gone to Iris immediately and said, "Oh my gosh, babe, you were my lightning rod. You brought me back. You helped. You're the reason I made this new multiverse, and I love you and all that stuff." Like that. Why wasn't she even there? Like it's not even that he didn't have like an emotional moment with her. She just wasn't there. Same with Cisco and Ralph. Neither of them were there. They were there in the first half of the crossover in big ways, but then they were just. And like they didn't even like try to throw it away with like a throwaway line like, "Oh yeah, they're in Turks and Caicos right now on vacation." Like no, they were just like, "Nope, we're not going to mention it, and no one will notice."
Maybe in that world, Iris doesn't exist.
That very well could be true, except she's in the preview for next week. So
well, yeah, and everyone is there, so it doesn't really matter if she's there or not because there's only. Now, one question I do have for you, and you might be able to explain it. There is a new multiverse.
Yes.
Again, it just sprung up after they combined it.
Yeah.
with
So
the new one.
they kind
So
of
how did
explained
that
this.
work? Because they said we combined. Did they just combine all of the worlds pre-crisis, and now there's a post-crisis multiverse?
No.
Because Kara, because Supergirl, the Flash, and all of those worlds are combined. So is it just those people that were there
So
for Crisis? Theirs are combined?
and I know this isn't like I'm not like this isn't the correct answer, but this is the best way I will try to explain it as I understand it, which isn't 100% correct. There's only so much, especially with like how convoluted these stories have been over the last 8 years.
What?
Like there's only so much they can do with how crazy and how big everything is. Like I get that. So I will try to explain this for them in a way that I understand it. And I believe what happened, the Earths that seemed to be combined were like Earth 1, where most of the heroes were from. Kara's Earth, I think it's Earth 38, where Supergirl's from.
Yeah, I don't remember the number.
And then Black Lightning's world. I don't know what number distinction his world has, but those three seem to be the ones that combined into Earth Prime. So, I believe the reason those three are like the main Earths that did is because the 7 Paragons, the characters that were like these beings of great responsibility and power, like Flash and Sarah, Katie Lotz, that's why I was saying that. They knew these characters like personally.
Yeah.
So maybe when they were creating the Earth, obviously, like they didn't know exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, they just knew
Like,
they
there
were
wasn't-
saving it.
They
Well,
did.
they didn't even know they were saving it.
They did their best with what they had, and they made a new multiverse. So I think all the characters that they knew are now in Earth Prime.
Yeah, I just figured it was whoever was involved in this, and it was just a convenient way of putting all the characters in the same
Right.
Earth.
So, and like some people will say, well, Kevin Conroy's Batman isn't back. Neither is that version of Luke from Batwoman. I would say because Batwoman has her own version of Luke and has her own version of Bruce Wayne already, so she probably brought those versions back.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, this isn't correct, but the reason I know it's not like all of the pre-Crisis Earths combining is because at the very beginning of Crisis, we see all of these Earths disappearing. And one of the Earths we saw disappearing was the Earth for Titans. Titans is that DC Universe app show.
Yeah, and now you see them again at the end.
Yeah, you see them again in a separate Earth at the end. Now, this is kind of a side thought. Titans and Doom Patrol take place like at the same time with the same characters, and they interact with each other in their shows. But in this post-crisis thing, they're on different Earths. So that is interesting for anyone that watches those shows. That's something to look out for in the future. I don't know how they're going to do that or what, but that's just another idea. But they did make... So, going back to the multiverse thing and how it happened.
Lay it down.
So, in the same idea that originally it started with one universe, and then it branched out from there into this infinite multiverse. It's the same thing. Like they created one universe and then that branched out into these multiple universes.
Okay.
So it's just this. It's the same thing happened again. It's like an inevitability.
I am inevitable. Yeah, I like how they tried to make this like a mini Thanos.
Yeah. Well, mini Thanos, who had much bigger stakes.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Thanos killed half of the universe. We're going to kill all of the multiverse.
So what did you think of, and I don't know if this was for you, it was spoiled for me by Grant Gustin. Thanks, The Flash.
Yeah, Grant.
What did you think of the Flash and Flash crossover in the Speed Force? With Ezra Miller as the Flash.
I have very mixed feelings on this. I love it. It finally proves that everything DC has ever made on screen, maybe not animated, but in general, like live action, is in one multiverse. They've come out since then, like the creators, and they're like, yeah, these are all in a multiverse. That way the writers don't have to be tied down. They can make their own stories.
How convenient.
Yeah, I know. It is super convenient.
Yeah, it's all the same, but it's not.
Well, and like especially because for a long time they didn't want them to cross over, like with Smallville and the Dark Knight movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that was before the Marvel
showed them up.
Do whatever you want and people will love it.
Yeah, exactly. So like I totally lost my train of thought. But so I loved that Ezra Miller was there. He's always fantastic. He's great as Barry Allen in The Flash. He's one of the best parts of the Justice League movie. He did great in the like 45 seconds he was there. I didn't expect him to be there at all, or B, if anything like that were to happen. I wasn't expecting like a long thing. So this was good. But the problem I had with it was what? Like okay, so this is
they don't explain why he's there
at
all.
They don't. He just there.
Shows up in the Speed Force. It's not even like a main universe.
And it's not even
something that they had to adventure into.
It's not even that. This is at the point in the crossover where the multiverse is gone. So theoretically, Ezra Miller's Flash should also be gone. But they were just like, well, we need to fit him in somewhere. Let's do it here. And hey, we got Ezra Miller. Everyone say, hey, Ezra Miller. Like,
you know what I think? You know what I think it was? I think it was something that he said at the very end, right before he vanishes. He says something.
Dark side.
You thought this wasn't possible, or we didn't think this would be possible.
I told Victor this was possible, or something like that.
So what my thought is since it's all happening around the multiverse, they're all disappearing. What I'm assuming happened is that at some point during Crisis, he went into the Speed Force trying to do the same thing they did, trying to fix it, and it didn't work.
Well, okay, I wouldn't even say he was trying to fix it. Because remember, Barry said...
do something.
Okay, I can't just say Barry. Grant's Barry says, wait, you don't even know what's happening. Like, all of this stuff. I think he just happened to accidentally go into the Speed Force at the exact perfect time, and he doesn't know how to control it, and that's why he fades out. Now, that's once again me trying to explain things for the writers, because I want them to make sense. That doesn't mean that's necessarily why it happened.
Yeah.
But that makes sense to me, so hopefully it makes sense to you.
I think that, it's probably something was more of an accident, or we saw it with some of the other Flashes. He could just be stuck there. Yeah. And that's finally what snapped him out of it. Well,
and I do believe, so his movie, whenever it gets out of like purgatory and actually gets made and finished, it's about Flashpoint. So it could be him learning how to do that, like just happened to be.
That's how they set up Flashpoint.
Well, and it seemed like he didn't even have the name The Flash yet.
Yeah, he didn't know anything.
Yeah, he was like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Sounds good.
Which is weird because he had a costume, like a nice one.
Well, but I don't think they called him The Flash in Justice League.
Oh, good point.
So like he already had the suit there.
Yeah.
So I think he was just
hanging out.
He didn't have Cisco to come up with it for
him. So let's do highs and lows. What is let's do maybe 2 or 3 of each. And I'll start off with one of the high points.
Okay.
High point for me, and this is kind of meta, but high point for me
Metahuman
is, oh my gosh, the Forensic Files theme song starts playing. I think I've said this to you before, but this is probably as of right now, obviously not in the future, but as of right now, for everything that's led up to now, I think this is the golden age of superhero content because it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
And most of it's good.
Yeah.
And I think that them doing things like this, these really ambitious crossovers, and having these shows be on TV and successful, just bodes well for this genre, this kind of content continuing into the future.
Well, and it's almost like film and TV is the new comic book. Like, I love comic books for how crazy they can get with the crossovers. You're just like, oh yeah, boom, it's a Flash comic, but Green Lantern's in this one. Like, they're doing that. They're actively doing that in the movies, the Marvel movies. They're doing that in the Arrowverse. Like, they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I never thought I would be able to see because, like, yeah, I guess Smallville kind of did that, but it was very reserved. And they didn't have the Flash. They had Impulse, which I was like, I don't know who that is. Now I do. But at the time, I was like, I'm 12.
You know what I think it might be? I think it's a couple of things. One, I think technology is so much better.
Right.
You can do more with a much lower budget. I think shows that, like Smallville or other shows that were special effects, that required special effects of any kind, it used to be a lot more expensive. And I think now that you can get a TV show and you can pretty much do anything. I mean, look at what they do in the Arrowverse now. I mean, most of it is visual effects.
Yeah. And it might not be amazing visual effects, but they're there. Like, they're good.
You can tell it's not a Hollywood.
Good, not great.
But it makes it crosses into that where it's technically possible, and you suspend your disbelief enough to enjoy you know what you're getting. You know you're not going into a movie theater to see something that is 100% believable looking.
Right.
But I think that it's nice that I think this is making superheroes and comics more accessible to people, because I know before I started hanging out with friends that read the comics and had people to tell me where to start, I had no idea.
You're welcome.
And it's hard to just go into a bookstore and say, I want to start reading like The Flash or Green Lantern. Where do I even start? You can Google it, but even
what
then,
of
it's
the
just confusing.
18 different volumes of The Flash do you want to read? Flash Brave and the Bold? Do you want to read The Flash? Do you want to read The Flash Volume 2? Do you want to read The Flash Volume 3? Like, yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's nuts. And with this to just be like, here's season 1, episode 1 of an entire universe, go.
Now, that is fair. If you try to get someone to watch the Arrowverse from the start today,
it's intimidating.
It's one of the biggest commitments on TV that you could possibly get yourself into.
Yeah, but so is reading comics.
Right, but like I'm saying, it's almost getting to that point.
Yeah.
Especially as these shows keep happening, growing, they're making more shows, like the Superman show that's starting.
You could say the same thing about comics. They go back to the, 30s?
Right, but I'm saying, like you said, the comics are so intimidating.
Well,
to people who haven't seen any of the Arrowverse, that's just as intimidating.
It is intimidating, but I mean more of a sense of here's where you can start.
Right. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I totally get that.
Here's where you can start, and if you would like to progress through this, you can.
Right. Okay, that's fair.
So what about you? High.
Okay, so one of my highs is, despite sometimes just the characters inexplicably not being there. Sorry, I can't say the word inexplicably.
Vanishing. They vanished.
Despite them not being there sometimes, the fact that the Arrowverse has been built up to this point and has so many characters and so many inside jokes that they reference and all of that stuff, and while the stakes are literally as high as they could possibly go, I think one of my favorite things is that they can still make those inside jokes that if you've been watching all these shows since the beginning, you get it. Like the giant Bebo or Mick being a romance novelist.
Yeah. I love Mick as a romance novelist.
And like the fact that it can get as serious as possible and it can make me cry. I'm an emotional person, I know. But like it can make me cry at multiple points, but still at the same time, like have those humorous moments of brevity, of just what people like. It's comfort food at the same time.
And the cast gets along really well too. They all have really good chemistry.
Exactly.
Even when they don't see each other constantly on their own shows.
Yeah, and like just like I just love how they can make the jokes, keep it light even though it's a heavy subject, and also like just having them just be like, oh yeah, by the way, Mick's exactly where you are right now. And they're like, Mick, where'd you come from? Like, he ruined my book signing. I love that. Like, it's dumb, and it's just a reason for him to be there, but it's like a good dumb, not like a Adam Sandler post 2008 dumb.
Yeah, the just the extent of it is amazing, and it's great that I don't know. It's just so exciting that it exists and that it's going to keep going.
Yeah.
And with how much they teased at the end, Green Lantern.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited. I've been wanting a Green Lantern show for
I've been wanting
so long.
Them to reference Green Lantern. Well, I guess they have. They've had Hal Jordan's jacket and all that stuff. But
hinted at it so hard, and now they finally showed Green Lantern.
Yeah.
One
Spoilers.
of the lows for me is I would say this is kind of nitpicky. Overall, I really enjoyed it. And this is kind of nitpicky. I felt like some of the episodes weren't... Over the course of 1 through 5, I feel like they could have done a little bit of the balance differently. I feel like they did a whole bunch at the very beginning, skipped over a few things like they weren't sure if they could fit it all. Like the stuff with Oliver Queen becoming Spectre. Like that was just out of left field.
That needed to be explained 1,000 times more.
And if they had just skipped, not even skipped, but just done some of the stuff they did like in the last episode a little bit faster, I think they could have balanced it out a little bit more to where some of the stuff that was just like, well, this happened.
They did not need the giant Bebo fight at all.
No.
Like that was just there.
The only reason I think that was there was just to show that the worlds had merged.
Right.
And kind of collided.
But they could have done that by just doing the, hey, you're on my Earth. Hey, you're on my Earth. That they did 10
a bunch.
minutes before that. Like
they did it a bunch, and they did it with like every character.
Like they hammered that. Like that's one of the most obvious things that happened. And they hammered that into your head 1,000 times.
But with the Spectre, why are you here?
With Oliver as the Spectre, they were just like, yeah, he's a
Oliver,
ghost, but
now.
not a ghost. Like he's Oliver, but not all. Like they didn't really explain it. So if you don't know the story behind that, you're not going to.
And you didn't even know who that guy was.
Yeah, there's like, hey, by the way, I'm Jim Corrigan. Who?
Yeah,
Jim Corrigan. He's the original. He's the Spectre. Yeah. Anyways,
but nobody watching that knew.
Yeah, exactly.
They were just like, I'm a guy in the woods, and come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Milo actually falls into yours a little bit with how, and this is just kind of an Arrowverse thing as a whole. Whenever there's something that they don't know how to explain, they just kind of like shove it forward, and they're like, "Yep, this happened."
Plot.
Yeah, they just explain like. The reasoning for it is they need to move the plot forward. And like, there were just a lot of times in the crossover where like something happened and they were like, just kidding. Like we need to move it forward. So like, okay, first of all, with Oliver dying and then him being alive and then him dying, like, okay, he could have just died that second time and it would have been all right. And that would have avoided the not explaining the Spectre thing.
Yeah.
And also with, they went back in time and spent. This was part 4. They went back in time and stopped Mar-Novu from entering into the beginning of time.
Yeah,
and prevented the anti-universe from being created.
Yeah,
except it was created because they were just like, oh, by the way, there's a multiverse of Mar-Novus who would do the same thing. So you guys did not. I was like, then why did I just spend 20 minutes watching that?
Well, you want to know what? If there are an infinite number of of him going back in time to do the exact same thing, why didn't that happen an infinite number of times? Why was he the only one that did it? And why is that? Why is that the only?
Maybe
one
he's
that
just
mattered?
the first one that did it. So that I don't know. Either way,
Exactly, it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. There's like that's one of my big.
Oh, we
negatives.
already did that. You can't do that. Get out of here.
Yeah, really. Like that's one of my big negatives with it. It's just like they don't explain things well. And I guess that's how superhero comics sometimes are.
I'm sure from like producing something this big, it's hard to, at the time, it's hard to be like, I wonder, is this going to work to someone? And you know that the people making these shows, as much as they might love the show, they don't know all of the stuff.
Okay, I was like, I don't know. They
know a
they
lot.
have experts. They are experts. They know a lot. But yeah, no,
But they're not sitting around analyzing this for days at a time.
Well,
just being like, is this going to work if we go back in season 3, episode 4? Oliver Queen said something about this. And
part of the problem is we're looking at this with adult eyes. Like if we were watching all of this and we grew up with this and we were like 10 years old and seeing this happen, we wouldn't question the science or question the explaining or anything like that. We're like, oh, okay, this is happening. That's cool. Like I'm sure that's happened. That's what happened.
Suspend so much.
Like when we watched Teen Titans or Justice League Unlimited growing up, I'm sure we did the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like
you just kind of forget about it. But then when you just start nitpicking at things, it's easy to just take it apart.
Yeah. Well, especially
things.
because that's what we're actually doing right now.
Yeah, that's actually what we set out to do.
Yeah. Anyways, more positives?
So I'll just do another one. I
have 2 more positives that I do want to talk about.
Another one for me is that's almost the exact same thing. I like that they aren't afraid to really explore the DC universe. They pick some obscure things and some just lesser known.
Wait, are you telling me Wild Dog is not an obscure character? Renee's
character. I still am. Every time I think of it, I'm convinced his name is Mad Dog. But I like that they aren't afraid to pull some of the lesser known characters, and it kind of gives me an appreciation. Like before the Arrowverse, I'd never heard of Constantine.
Yeah,
ever.
I like him.
Anything like that. I'd never heard of Black Lightning. I'd never heard of Black Canary. Any of those.
Well, and even
something else along with that is I'm glad that they're still making new shows.
There's a new one called Stargirl coming out, and we saw that when they showed the New Earth 2.
And I like that they started up with Batwoman. I haven't seen all of it yet, but I like that they are not afraid to just say, well, here's a whole nother universe, or here's a whole nother like story, characters, everything. Here you go. Enjoy.
Well, and like going on to your first point with like just bringing in the obscure characters, I always fancied myself as like a comic book expert. I was the comic book guy. I have thousands.
The expert nerd.
Yeah. I have thousands of comic books, Marvel and DC.
He's not
like
kidding.
Literally thousands.
He's not joking.
And they bring in characters and I'm just like, oh, they made up a character for the show. And then I Google it. I'm like, oh, no, they didn't. So like Wild Dog was one of them. I was like, who the hell is this? And like there are some of the obscure characters that I do know. Like I did know who the Atom was first. I knew who Firestorm was.
Atom. I love Firestorm.
But like
R.I.P.
I knew who Wildcat was, and like he was in like half of season 3 of Arrow.
Oh.
He was like the boxer guy.
Yeah.
But like I didn't even know who Vibe was. And he's like one of the main characters of The Flash.
Yeah.
And they bring in these characters and make you care about them.
Honestly, I thought
I even knew who the elongated man was before this. I knew who he was. So I know obscure things, but like they still bring in even more stuff that people like for people like me who are like, oh, well, I know where this is going. They're like, oh yeah? Well, here's something else.
And it is funny that they made those kind of smaller characters the main characters. Like they made Ralph, the elongated man, one of the main characters.
Yeah, love him.
And they made obviously Vibe is one of the mains.
Vibe.
And what did I say?
Vibe.
Honestly, Vibe is one of the main ones, but I thought they made him up.
Yeah. Not like. Anyways, now, do you have another positive to talk about, or am I doing 2 in a row? Because I can.
Hit me.
Okay. My first one is.
I have a ton of positives, but
we have to limit it real quick too. But okay, so one of my big positives, as a Smallville fan who watched all 10 seasons.
Oh, that was dope.
It was.
I did not watch Smallville. That was dope.
It was so good seeing Tom Welling.
That was awesome.
Back. Now he didn't put on the cape, he didn't put on the crest or anything like that, but just seeing him in the same episode as a Superman, if not multiple Supermen, like seeing him back and referencing stuff and like giving him like the ending that he deserved, where it's like, no, I chose to be with my family. Like, I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be with my family. Like some people were upset by that because he wasn't Superman anymore, but I loved it. I loved it.
Seeing him as Clark Kent, almost said Superman, but seeing him as Clark Kent, just a regular guy, that moment was like
Clark Kent, regular guy.
That moment was like when you are like going somewhere and you like pass by a friend of yours that you knew like in high school,
and you're like, oh,
and you
good
can
for
clearly
them.
see that they're doing well, and you're like, awesome.
It's like when you see something on Instagram, you're like, oh,
good for them.
I'm happy for them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, but yeah,
we saw Clark Kent on Instagram, and
that just made me so happy.
Yeah, it was really good, and that they handled it well with the whole. It wasn't like it didn't feel like it was rushed or anything. Lex just tried to attack
he still
him
punched Lex in the face.
Yeah, that was
like,
that was
yeah,
cool.
I can kick your ass without my powers.
God,
like,
Lex sucks.
Edit that out.
That's another one of mine. Actually, you know what? Really quick, I hate Lex in this.
It's almost like that's on
so
purpose.
annoying. But they really glossed over the fact that he was just a good guy in like a good guy quotes.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, like he's fighting off the demons. Not because he wants to help the heroes. He's like, if anyone's gonna
take
rule over the universe, it's
me.
me. And then afterwards, he's like, oh, so that's what it's like to be a hero. Which he does become a hero at one point in the comics.
And then at the very end, they're like, "Oh, I'm getting a Nobel Prize," and everyone's like,
Peace Prize.
Yeah, Lex Luthor is the greatest guy ever.
He deserves it.
And then after Kara sees him just getting the Nobel Prize, they never mention him again.
Yeah.
So unless they come back in the next part of Supergirl, it's just
they are. It shows that in the preview, but it's fine.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I watched all the previews. It's something I do. But anyways, getting back to my last positive.
Yeah.
As someone who has been watching Arrow since the beginning, seeing how crazy this universe has gone, seeing how widespread it's gone, just from starting a show where it was just a guy with a bow and arrow, and then leading into metahumans, aliens, multiverse, magic, all of this stuff being time travel, all of this stuff being thrown in there, from starting with a guy with a bow and arrow who just killed people who he thought deserved it, seeing the character arc for Oliver Queen to where at the very end, the president of this new world gave like a speech that everyone in the episode, which should be everyone in the freaking Arrowverse, was watching, and they were getting emotional. And it's like, yeah, no, he was the one that started it all.
Mm-hmm.
This is the ending he deserves.
Yeah,
it was like a beautiful ending to Oliver Queen.
Yeah,
and a beautiful beginning to like the next chapter.
Yeah.
It felt like this ended part 1, the same way that like in Endgame ended like the Infinity Saga, which technically Spider-Man Far From Home did, but whatever. But we won't get into that.
Yeah, it is. I recently started watching Arrow from the beginning with my now fiance, and going back to that, oh my gosh, it has come so far. And if you want to hear a throwback word, you remember Mirakuru soldiers?
Yeah, Mirakuru Vigilante. You have failed this universe.
yeah, just it's insane how different Arrow season 1 is to Oliver Queen's
To
last
Crisis
stand
on
in
Infinite Earths.
Part 4 of Infinite Earths. And oh my gosh, they came so far. And what was that? 9 years? 8 years?
8 years.
Yeah, that's insane.
Well, technically 7.5, but yes.
That was
actually
like the end of high school, all the way through college, all the way through now. It's been a part of my life for a long time.
I started watching this in my house that I had in Moore.
Mhm.
Like, it's so much has happened in our lives since this show has started.
Yeah.
And like, but it at the same time like feels like a constant.
Mhm.
And it's just crazy. It's crazy that it got to this level. Crazy in an amazing way. Like, I never thought I would be able to see something like this of the characters I grew up loving. And I know the past few years, Arrowverse has kind of fallen out. Like, people are like, oh, I've seen enough of The Flash. I've seen enough of Arrow. But, like, it's so good.
Yeah, I like that they, I feel like, with Arrow, I like that they didn't have it on life support. I like that they didn't keep it alive longer than it needed to be. They gave him a proper send-off.
At Supernatural.
There's too many seasons of Supernatural. They knew when it was their time to end it. They knew when it was time to pass on the torch to the rest of the cast of Arrow, and eventually the Flash is going to do it. Eventually Supergirl's going to do it. God willing.
Don't tell me that. Like, eventually this universe is going to end.
They ended it at the right time for Oliver Queen, and seeing Stephen Amell's tweets, it's been a hell. Well, I don't remember what he said.
Like,
it was like it's been a hell of a ride. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's basically like, 8 seasons in an entire universe is a good place to hang it up.
Yeah, and like he knows, he was not like, well, I could, what if I just came back for another season?
It's just, it was a beautiful and perfect ending.
Yeah,
to his story.
Yeah, there's, I'm so excited to see more of the Flash. I'm excited to see what they do with Oliver gone and Barry as the new de facto leader.
Is he? Like, he made, oh my gosh, another positive. The freaking Hall of Justice.
Yeah, that was
How
cool.
could I forget about that?
That was dope. The chairs.
Finally, the Hall of Justice, the chairs, the table, which, once again, there should have been more than the people that were there.
Yeah, they should all have been there for
like
Oliver.
7 people. There should have been more people there. But given that there is a Hall of Justice, there is like a Justice League, even though they didn't say the name.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just so glad that they really were hyping it up to be like, this is going to be intense, this is going to be insane. It's going to be, the end and the beginning to certain things, and I was like, they're just hyping it up. It was most of those things.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Me too.
So really quick, in the last very quick little minute that we have.
Speed round.
What does lightning round some of your predictions? Little to no context.
I just think there's going to be more crossover with characters. Maybe not necessarily like Flash and Supergirl more or anything like that. And like, there's still going to be an annual crossover. Like, they hinted at that with Black Lightning. It's like, oh, come on. How often does the world end?
Once
and they all
a
just kind of
year.
look at him. They're like, ooh. And he's like, oh, it's like that, huh? But no, like, there's going to be an annual crossover still, obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe not to this level, but there's going to be some kind of something.
I think this is how they're going to end shows from now on.
Yeah.
I think something
that.
like this is going to happen every time one of these shows
That
comes
would
to an
be.
end.
Well, I feel like eventually they have to end all of the shows with something like this, like at the same time. Because, like, anyways, moving on, like, not moving on, but like, I think like side characters are going to meet with each other more because they're on the same Earth now. Like,
yeah. That
like
definitely takes down a literal barrier to getting to each other.
But no, like,
because they gave up a lot of the dimension skipping.
Because there would be times when like Cisco would go to Arrow or like something like that.
Yeah.
Between those two shows, but now that they're all on the same Earth,
there's a lot less explaining they have to do to just get each other on the other show.
Yeah. And I think some of the side characters in like some of the shows might end up being like regulars on other shows.
Yeah,
so like I could see
characters moving.
So I could see who
or
was
being
it?
heavy regulars on other shows.
I could see Diggle showing up on another show.
Yeah.
I could see Brainy being on the Flash more. I could see Cisco going over to help the DEO with like not just being like a one-time per season thing.
Yeah.
Like I think there are going to be changes around.
They could easily
cast.
shift the characters around.
Yeah.
Now, one of my predictions, like I said, I think this is going to be how they end shows. So, like, as the seasons get on, and like, if I had to make a prediction, Flash is probably next.
Don't you wish that on me?
Just because it's the second longest, it's my favorite too.
I know.
But I think something like that is either going to be how at least Barry Allen goes away, and one of the other Flashes takes over.
The real Wally West, not Keenan Lonsdale, which he did a good job.
Yeah.
But there are two Wally Wests in the comics, and the real one is a ginger. And he's my favorite superhero.
That's true.
And I want him. Anyways, that's not going to happen, but yeah.
And I predict Green Lantern show, not just a recurring character.
I think so too. And it showed. I could almost see like David Ramsey being John Stewart on that, like what it was like Earth 17 or 18 or something like that.
Yeah, whatever the one the Green
where
Lantern.
they showed all of the Green Lantern. I could see him because it's been hinted at for like 4 years, or like hoped for by fans for like 4 years.
He ended the show in green.
Yeah. Well, I think that was more of a tribute to Oliver than
right,
to Green Lantern.
still.
But yeah, like it could be both.
He has an affinity for green.
Yeah.
Who, if they do a Green Lantern, who do you think it is? Not character.
Oh.
Well, yes, character, but not one of these characters, like Hal Jordan.
Oh,
or
okay.
Which Green Lantern do you think it would be if they did a Green Lantern?
I think if it goes with the Diggle thing, like
do you think
this season
if Diggle
in
becomes
Arrow,
a Green Lantern, do you think it's a Green Lantern, a Diggle as Green Lantern show, or do you think it's a Green Lantern show with Diggle
I think it's
as
like
one of the Green Lanterns?
I think it's like a Green Lantern core show with Diggle as one of the main characters. Now, they showed earlier, I think it was this season in Arrow, that Diggle's stepdad's last name is Stewart. John Stewart.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally, so in other worlds, like, he got along with his stepdad more.
Yeah.
He's literally John Stewart. They showed that he's John Stewart.
Yeah.
Like, so if they do an alternate world thing, then yeah, obviously he's John Stewart. Like, they said that.
Yeah.
Now, I would want it to be Hal Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
He's my favorite Green Lantern. Like, don't get me wrong, love John Stewart.
Yeah.
Love Kyle Gardner. Nope, sorry, Kyle Rayner. Hate Guy Gardner.
Yeah.
But Hal Jordan's just the OG.
He is awesome.
Well, technically Alan Scott, but whatever.
Yeah.
Hal Jordan's my favorite, hands down.
Yeah. So I know you are. I'm super excited to see just what happens next.
Yeah, always.
And
nothing. Very few things get me as excited to this day. From the very beginning of the Arrowverse, I still get just as excited about the Arrowverse today than I did when it first started.
Yeah, I'm always pumped. And even watching it again, I was like, oh yep, it's time to watch it again.
Yep.
So in closing, if you guys have not seen Crisis on Infinite Earths,
warning: there are spoilers in this.
There
podcast.
are spoilers in this episode. Sorry.
Crisis Cast.
In this Crisis Cast.
And sorry we didn't go over like every major thing, even every minor thing throughout the plot.
There's a lot.
But if you watched it, then you know what happened.
You would see it. Yeah. Don't listen to us. Go watch it. But
now,
then come and listen to us.
If you do want to hear our thoughts on some of the other things that happened, comment, ask us. We'll be more than happy to come back later. Yeah, I could talk about this forever.
And ever.
And ever.
But yeah, so like I said, if you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. You should have seen it first, because in the title of this, it will say spoilers. And but yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know your predictions for the future of the Arrowverse. It's almost hard to call it that, because
don't you say that.
It's so hard.
His daughter's becoming the new Green Arrow.
That's true.
They're just basically replacing him.
So yeah, Let us know what you think is going to happen, and also let us know what your favorite part. Let us know your highs and lows for the Crisis on Infinite Earths 1 through 5. Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you in the next episode. We'll talk to you in the next episode. We won't see you. If we see you in the next episode, I'm calling the cops.
I'll always see you.
I'll see you. We won't see them.
I'll see them too.
I'm calling the cops.
Bye.